Good morning, everyone. Mike McConville here one more time for String Tech Workstations, Stratford, Ontario, Canada. We have two Larrivee guitars in today. Larrivee is still one of my all-time favorites, and I don't stand alone with that opinion. But sometimes even a beautiful guitar like this gets a nasty, nasty bash. So the first thing I want to do is restructure this temporarily so that I can run the cutter along there, cut off the old binding, and we're going to take a piece out of this top so we'll have complete access to restore the kerfing that has broken off in chunks inside the guitar. The damage actually goes around the lower bout and comes right up to here. But in the end, we want the guitar to be 100% structurally and acoustically sound. So I'm working on getting all this loose pulverized abalone out of there first so that we can flex that top down flush. I've had a really good look inside at this ledge from the inside with a light, and there's all kinds of pulverized chips of abalone that are preventing the top from lying flat. Upon impact, the kerfing split and is cracked wide open. This is why we need to take this piece out, redo the kerfing completely, and when we're done, we'll completely restore the structural integrity. But there is a method in the madness, and you will see as it all comes out of the wash. Okay, we have smoothed out that busted polyurethane. We'll be able to run the bearing for the cutter along there. It's nice and smooth. After cutting out all that loose pearl that had pulverized and infiltrated in between the underside of the top and the surface of the kerfing so that this would not glue down, cut all that stuff away and then blew it out with some compressed air. It's temporary, but it's solid enough that I can now proceed to cut off this portion of the soundboard and get access to the inside, and you'll see why I'm going to that extent. I temporarily glued in some small strips of wood just to kind of hold that form and to keep the top glued down temporarily while we get on to the next stage of the job. You can see it's almost like core sampling. The 1/4-inch diameter bit, and then just cut through the abalone just to expose that very edge so I get a sense of the thickness at that point. You can see this gap here. That gives you an indication of that kerfing pulling away, which you can't see from the outside of the guitar. We've ascertained that is the depth of cut that we're going to go with a very small dovetail cutter. So there we go. Here's the smashed kerfing that we wanted to get at, and that's part of the temporary piece I put in to allow me to actually make the cuts that I've made to this point. So we got a fairly good match grain-wise to that Sitka spruce. The reason I used a dovetail cutter here with a very shallow pitch, when I push it in tight, the angle of the dovetail allows it to lock into place. So we'll get this kerfing out, put the new kerfing in. As you can imagine, there were multiple decisions. This was a real Rubik's Cube, step by step by step. Every decision I made, I cleaned off the kerfing that got the worst hit, but there was still a crack that extended just about 3/4 of an inch in. So I've got this clamp pulling in, this clamp pushing down to get a nice clean glue joint on the last little bit of that split in the kerfing. Here's our next step. We have the new kerfing, the replacement kerfing is being glued into place, and the little tip at the intersection of these braces is also being glued down tight to the kerfing. All of the internal restructuring is done. We've got our new kerfing on there. We've glued down that tip. Very happy with the way this turned out. This panel of quarter sawn spruce has a very slight cant on it. It locks itself into place. Got our hot hide glue here, of course, and I do have a rag inside the guitar on the back to basically soak up any drips. I don't want to starve this joint here and make sure we got plenty of glue. I actually have a rubber tipped threaded rod pushing on the inside. It'll be a lot easier to show you as I take it apart. Could write a whole book on this repair. As you can see, I've got it kind of jacked up so that the glue runs into that crack. Good. Yeah, I think we're getting good saturation there. The Canadian School Luther. We've got another piece of hockey puck here. The nice thing about this rubber is I can kind of tension it, and just by pulling it. Good. Yeah, I needed to pull back far enough so you can kind of see what I'm up to here. So this clamp is obviously way overkill. I put very little pressure, as you can imagine, on this. I just wanted to pull that rubber hockey puck in tight against that crack we were just looking at. That's it. So we're going to let that set for about an hour. This will complete all of the restructuring since this thing got smashed. Thank God for hockey pucks. So between this rubber tipped threaded rod, this butted up against the head block, also rubber, no Mars, not a scratch, right? This pushed the busted rosewood out. The big bar clamp you saw with the hockey puck basically pulled it in. And this was the hockey puck that kind of pulled that crack together. I left that for about an hour, but I'm just going to leave that on overnight, and we'll come back tomorrow. And then we'll bring this to the next stage. A bad spot on the top there where that finish just flaked right off. It's actually fairly thick too, so I'm just doing my best to feather it out and get it ready for Darcy to kind of blow in. As I'm sanding, I'm trying to sort of keep that symmetry. I don't want to dig a hole in this one spot. I'm trying to feather it out. So this is the next step in this process. That shallow ledge was cut, full length of the patch. I stopped the cutter just before we touched the original material. So this last little corner here will be cut out by hand, and the same with this side, that last little tip. This will be finished by hand in preparation for the black strip that's going to go on first. Okay, I'm bringing you in here to sort of explain step by step how I've got to this stage. So after that patch was glued in, it was basically flush trimmed all the way around. So the next step was to cut this ledge that accepts the plastic strip that goes in between the abalone and the rosewood. That has been put in with CA. So a little bit at a time, I just whipped CA in there, pushed it in tight, and then hit it with this glue boost, which is kind of a cool product. So this gives you a quick instant cure. A couple of shots, and then I moved on and made my way around right up tight. Now I'm going to bring you in a little closer. See that purfling here? So I'm going to drop the cutter down so it's just shy of this purfling all the way around, and I'm going to cut the right depth for the rosewood trim. So bear with me, people. This will all make a lot more sense as we move along. Okay, we've got that concave or inside curvature exactly where we want it. And now we'll cut the convex curvature. This little cherry veneer serves two purposes. It will seal up the spruce soundboard edge, and it will also serve as a riser to bring the abalone up flush. So I'm just mixing up some hide glue, and it's pretty well ready to go. It's like got a kind of medium-sized brush that I use to mix up the hide glue, and this is showtime. So that's a pretty thin mixture of hide glue that I mixed up. I just want to get that to tack and seal the grain of the soundboard. So quick little wipe up. We'll let that set and then get ready for the final cut. Use the flat of that tongue depressor to just kind of push that down. It feels good and solid all the way around. So that's the nice thing about hide glue. When you mix it up right, you get the right viscosity, right thickness, and just the right amount of tack. So we're going to just let that set, bone dry, and then we'll cut the ledge for the rosewood binding. Okay, so this is my storyboard cut that I made before I go anywhere near the guitar. Measured that with my verniers, the depth of the cut and the height of the cut. And now we're ready to make that final cut to install the rosewood binding. So I have done my dry run on the abalone inlay. It is not glued in yet. I will remove that inlay now and get ready to cut that ledge for the binding. I'm getting a read on that flamenco tap plate. In order to get a perfect cut, I'm going to need to actually shore this up so that the router doesn't tip slightly. Yeah, it's about 11th thou. Okay, so what we're looking at here is I have a piece of emery cloth that just so happens to be the exact same thickness as this tap plate that's on here. So I put that on, I cut the new ledge. This is the ledge for the rosewood binding. And I also have a piece of emery cloth that I ran along there, the bearing ran along there, and it's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. So let me bring you in a little closer. So the last little bit of that ledge is going to need to be done by hand. Same deal on this side. To marry up that original rosewood binding with the replacement piece I'm putting on, this will also need to be sort of cut out by hand. So we'll let that rosewood binding set, and then we'll come back and put the abalone in. Well, this is our very final dry run fit. So now we're ready to mix up a paste and glue this into place. Final drop fill and out to Darcy for finishing. So we're doing the wrap up on this Larrivee that was smashed by the Airlines. And I'm pretty well ready to hand it over to Darcy now. All the structural stuff has been done. Let's bring you in for a little closer look. So of course all of the abalone has been replaced, and we have this new rosewood binding on the outside. The finish has been more or less feathered. I think I'm going to let Darcy take it from here. We've got a beautiful match on that soundboard, and when you look where I've sanded through here, if you look at the color here and here, I'm delighted with that match. I have masked off the flamenco tap plate, that thin pick guard that Larrivee uses, and I've masked off the bridge. But I want to bring you in for this sound hole masking trick. This is for the builders, the Patreon level 3 guys, anyone that's building guitars or spraying guitars. This may be something you've seen before, or maybe not. Let's have a look. What I have here is I've got a tongue depressor that holds that masking guard on the inside of the sound hole. That basically holds it down away from the underside of the lip. I have a balloon I've blown up in there. That's where I get my sort of spring action. And we have the little finger wheel adjustments at the edge of the sound hole, so I want to mask those off as well. And that's where we're going with this. So I just kind of put that bristle board in there, like so. So I stick the balloon in the sound hole, blow it up, and then just put that bristleboard piece over top. And that's floating on the balloon tension. So there you go. There's a little trick for you. So that essentially prevents any overspray from getting inside the guitar when you're doing your finishing. For my regular viewers, you've probably noticed I've had a little bit of a shop reconfiguration. I have my rolling cabinet here right at the front door. And I've got my new drill press that I just picked up a couple of weeks ago. This is a 15-inch king, so there's 7.5 inches between the column and the center of the chuck. So it's deep enough for most guitar-related jobs. That's my old tried and true Rockwell 14-inch bandsaw with a aluminum block in there as a riser, so I can make a big deep cut when I need to do that from time to time. And then here, the GPS unit is on this bench, and the Larrivee is on the XLT unit. I should mention that this entire job on the Larrivee was done on the XLT unit. It never once went on the GPS unit. And of course my Patreon Tier 3 subscribers will be getting the entire play-by-play on this whole job. Now next I have my sort of old quarter sawn oak typewriter desk. Let me bring you in for a look at this. So this just flips open, and I have my spherical radius sander in there, and that's run on an air switch. I think you've seen that in other videos. But when I need a little bit of extra layout space, I've got some extra tabletop. What you see in the foreground here is a tapered maple wedge that I use for shooting the radius on fingerboards. After the fingerboard taper is cut, of course the fret slots would already have been cut, I will use this as a backer board to shape the radius with those sanding blocks that you guys get in your kits. So on the back side of that oak desk, I have my 12-inch stationary disc sander, and of course that's the edge sander over in the corner. And of course everything is hooked up to my dust collection, which is run with a remote control. So this new setup has allowed me just a little bit more elbow room, a little bit more open space in the shop. My shop is 220 square feet. My last shop was 5,000 square feet. And you know something? I don't miss it for a second. I get more work done with my two tack decks in this 220 square feet. Of course, you can see I use every cubic inch. This is my joiner. This is an old Poitras 6-inch joiner. I love my little shop. And I've got these library shelves that you see in all the videos and tools hanging up. I got my tool rack, an old letter rack that my dad made about 60 years ago. And over the years, I have come to appreciate less is more. And most of you guys that are doing this type of work tend to be pretty frugal. And I myself am quite frugal. But if I look at the years since I left that 5,000 square foot shop, I think I've saved about $340,000 in rent. But more importantly, I love my little Zen shop. You can blindfold me and shove me in here and I know where everything is. Anyway, so this is the latest configuration. It just leaves a little bit more open space from the front door right to the back. And this little square of open space between the drill press, the bandsaw, and my rolling cabinet, I can get around pretty good in this little shop. So there you go. There's my latest shop tour. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope maybe I've given you some ideas for your own shop. Cheers. Each of these tack decks take up 2.7 square feet. So basically we've got 5.4 square feet of real estate. That's where I do my work on the guitars. Whenever I do need any heavy machinery, I've got tons of people I know locally with amazing machine shops that if I need CNC work done, which is very rare, or any type of machining, well, I know where to go. And for you guys too, get to know your local machinist. So when you need some type of metal work done, there's plenty of people around to do it. In the last 465 videos I've posted, everything is done in this little 220 square foot shop. We are finally on the home stretch with this humongous restoration. So we'll start with our little tuning test. There's our B on the 7th fret and the corresponding octave. Okay, it's about 4 or 5 cents sharp. A string, 5th fret, and octave. Perfect. D string and octave. 5 cents flat. G string, 7th fret, and octave. Yeah, it's about 4 cents flat. B string and octave, about 3 cents flat. Now there's lots to play here, but you can see where we're going with this. 1st string, 7th fret, and octave. That's good. So we got The A string and the high E string are perfectly in tune. The rest of them need some help. We're definitely going with the cantilevered saddle. We've finished the compensated nut, and we've finished the compensated saddle. So let's go through that tuning test again. Compare apples to apples. So let's have another look at that tuning. 6th string open, 12th fret, and then 7th fret and corresponding octave. Open string and 1st fret. Sorry, the traffic's going by on the street there. Open 5th string, 12th fret, 7th fret, and octave. Open 5th string and 1st fret. D string open, 12th fret, 7th fret, and octave. Open D string and 1st fret. 3rd string open, 12th fret, 7th fret, and octave. And 1st fret. Open, 12th fret, 7th fret, and octave. And then open 2nd string and 1st fret. 1st string open, 12th fret, 7th fret, and octave. 1st string open and 1st fret note. Now the real test, of course, is to play chords all over the neck, and that's what we're going to do next.